Blizzard has given me an exclusive look at 4 brand new warrior cards, and after much deliberation, I decided that I will in fact be sharing these cards with all of you. They also gave me some giveaway codes for some BlizzCon bundles that have a bunch of card packs and I think a signature legendary. And at some point in this video, I'll be telling you how you can possibly win one of those. Our first brand new card is Blast Tortoise, a 6 mana 2/7 beast with taunt and a battle cry that deals damage to all enemy minions equal to this minion's attack. So at a baseline, we deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, and then have a 2/7 taunt to potentially clean up anything that survived. But of course, because this damage scales off the Tortoise's attack, any buffs we can give to it beforehand make it much, much stronger. And that's where Detonation Juggernaut comes in. This is a 5 mana 3/6 mech with taunt, and a battle cry to give taunt minions at our hand +2/+2. So on its own, giving minions at our hand +2/+2 is very strong, but it's especially good on the Tortoise, bumping the damage from 2 all the way up to 4, which makes it much, much more potent. But Detonation Juggernaut isn't the only way to buff our taunt minions. There's also Unlucky Powder Man, a 2 mana 2/2 undead with taunt of course, and a death rattle to give all taunt minions in our hand and deck +1/+1. So of course the card this reminds me most of is Prince Keleseth, but compared to Prince Keleseth, this minion also buffs our hand, it has taunt, it's got the undead tag, and we can play 2 copies of it. So compared to Keleseth, this card looks pretty strong. And funnily enough, one of the reasons Prince Keleseth was so strong was Serenite Chain Gang, and if you've been following the reveals up to this point, then you may have seen the very similar Azurite Chain Gang, a 4 mana 2/3 taunt, with Battle Cry and Quick Draw to summon a copy of this minion. And as a reminder, Quick Draw is an effect that activates if you play the card the turn it's added to your hand. So when we play this Chain Gang, it's going to summon either 1 or 2 copies of itself. So any of these sort of hand buffs we can land on it, we get double or even triple value out of. I would expect this to be a core card in the Taunt Warrior deck. For my final reveal, we've got Battle Pickaxe, a 3 mana 4/1 weapon that says after you play a taunt minion, gain +1 durability. Battle Pickaxe is a crazy name for a card. That's got to be one of the longest single word card names in the game. If you can think of a longer one, head over to my Twitter, there'll be a tweet you can respond to. First person to name a 1-word card name longer than Battle Pickaxe will win that BlizzCon code giveaway I mentioned earlier. And if there isn't a 1-word card name longer than this, I guess I'll give it away to a random person. But anyway, 3 mana 4/1 weapon, kinda stinky, but as soon as we've played 1 taunt minion, a 3 mana 4/2 weapon is very strong, and anything beyond that is totally insane. If we play 7 taunt minions with this in play, it'll be a 4/8, which does 32 damage, so we could potentially kill the opponent with just this card. Warrior does of course have a lot of competition for weapons around this mana slot, but none of them come close to the raw damage potential of Battle Pickaxe. So there we have it for my 4 reveals for the upcoming expansion. I think it's a pretty interesting bunch of cards. They all obviously seem like they can go in the same deck, and I think they are all strong enough to see constructed play, but none of them are totally insane to the point where you absolutely have to play them. So there are some deck building decisions to be made. And Taunt is an interesting archetype because it's so open-ended. There's so many Taunt minions in the game, and every new set is probably going to be introducing new Taunt minions. So there should always be changes that can be made to the Taunt Warrior deck, which I think is cool. It's also not obvious what kind of deck Taunt Warrior wants to be. With the Battle Pickaxe, maybe it could be a hyper aggro face deck, or with the Blast Tortoise, maybe we're leaning more toward control. One thing I want to point out is that we got a beast, a mech, and an undead, and Warrior has historically played so-called menagerie cards. They've got Power Slider, which gets +1/+1 for each different minion type we've played throughout the game, and of course the 1 Amalgam Band, which gets a bonus effect for each minion type we've played throughout the game. So I think a deck that cares about those synergies would be a good place to start with Taunt Warrior in the coming expansion. There are also some existing Taunt Warrior synergies that get a lot stronger with the introduction of these new cards. There's Frightened Flunky, a cheap taunt minion that discovers another taunt minion, and the Legendary Armadillo, which is another way to hand buff our taunt minions. These seem like obvious inclusions in whatever sort of taunt warrior deck exists. Another couple cards to point out are Black Rock and Roll and Lorthamartheron to buff our deck. Black Rock and Roll gives Blast Tortoise in particular +6/+6, which makes the AoE deal 8 damage, which is extremely strong. And there's also Lorthamartheron, which doubles the stats of all minions in our deck, which will also double the buff given to our deck by Unlucky Powder Man. After playing all these deck buffs, we could potentially finish things off with Last Stand, a 1-mana spell that draws a taunt minion from our deck and doubles its stats. So it's possible that our Tortoise could be dealing like 40 damage to all enemy minions, which, if nothing else, is very funny. So I think that's it for me. Thanks for watching through to the end of the video, and thanks to Blizzard for giving me these 4 cards to reveal, particularly the turtle that throws dynamite at its enemies, which I think is one of the funniest cards in the set.